Lovely. Okay, welcome to course rep training. Thanks to those that could make it today. So throughout the session, for those of you who are actually in the call, we're going to be doing a couple of little word clouds during the session. So if you want to join those, you'll be able to join by a QR code or through this website. And the first one I want to start with, just to get a sense of what you guys know about the role, is what does a course rep do, in your opinion? So if you're able to join either by your phone or in a tab on your browser on your computer, please do join. I'll give you guys a few moments to share some ideas of what you think a course rep does. Also, if you're able to use like the Microsoft Teams raise hands feature, how many of you in this call have never been a course rep before? Okay, so the majority, good to know. Nice, okay, thank you. Just helps me get an idea of who I'm working with. Okay, so back to the word cloud. Feel free to keep adding ideas. I'm just gonna have a look at what you've added so far. Okay, so a really key thing that course reps do that's just been added: feedback. You gather feedback, you write up feedback, you report feedback to people. Some stuff about mediating between students and professors. I think mediating is a really good word. Occasionally there are things that feel a little bit more controversial or conflicting. And yeah, you are kind of a mediator when those issues arise. A voice for students. Yeah, you make sure that students have a platform that where their opinions get heard. Forefront of change. Yes, you are, and forefront of change and collaborate. You are supposed to be able to work with your core staff to actively make changes on your university experience as you're studying. Friendly face, yeah, it's a very supportive role. And yeah, you kind of become the kind of experts of your course, so you are quite good at, hopefully will be quite confident in signposting people to different members of staff. Helps, liaises, and yeah, communicates. Obviously really important because you are sharing information with people, and you're not speaking on your own personal experience, you're speaking on behalf of a group of people, so being able to communicate well is really important. Thank you for sharing those insights. So, as you guys have said, course reps represent their peers' views within a specific course. They gather feedback, attend meetings with academic staff, and communicate updates to students. Advocate for improvements on their course and support students with concerns. What you've just witnessed there is me having a mini panic that I wasn't recording this call. So good. Anyways, so the best way to describe what you guys do as course reps is through the feedback loop. So at its very simplest, the course rep role and course reps collect feedback from students about how things are going on their course. Then you tell course staff about the feedback in your next SSLC, or in other meetings. You may have more informal meetings with staff, like sort of bi-weekly or bi-monthly check-ins. And then in those meetings, you come up with solutions to the feedback with staff to then tell students on your course how their feedback is going to be resolved, what are staff going to do about it, and when do they plan to do something about it. And then as you're closing the feedback loop with students, you can offer to collect more feedback about their experience and what's going on in the course. And so the cycle continues. So the responsibilities of a course rep. At Students' Union, we give a vague estimate that you should put aside at least 8 hours a term for this role, but that is entirely a guide and not a rule. And those 8 hours factor in the mandatory meetings that you have to go to, like the 2-hour SSLCs that you go to. But a breakdown of what you are required to do and what your mandatory responsibilities are: you must attend one student staff liaison committee every term. So that's 3 a year. And that applies to every undergraduate department and some postgraduate students. Obviously, there's situations where you might be a course rep where you don't go to student staff liaison committees, but you have different types of meetings. So adapt that depending on what level you're studying at. So for instance, if you're a postgraduate research student, you won't have student staff liaison committees, you have different meetings. And if you are a course rep for things like the Foreign Language Centre, I believe, and stuff like that, you're not necessarily going to have very formal student staff liaison committees. They're probably more likely to be coffee mornings, but you'll still have an equivalent meeting that you have to go to. On top of attending the student staff liaison committees, you have to spend a few hours ahead of the SSLC collecting and writing up feedback, obviously, because something needs to be discussed in these meetings. You must submit feedback to every SSLC, even if you can't attend, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. And you must share the outcomes of SSLC meetings with your course cohorts. This is called closing the feedback loop. It's really important that students who aren't involved directly in the rep system know what the rep system is doing to help them and benefit them. And then on top of all of this, sort of these responsibilities, you can attend other things with the Students' Union that are entirely optional, but it would be great to have some of you guys there. An example of that is the Big Rep meeting. We do the Big Rep meeting every year. And this meeting is an opportunity for you guys to feedback about issues that are impacting the wider campus. So you may get feedback about services and other things on campus that your lecturers can't directly action a solution for because they aren't directly responsible for the services in question. This could be the wellbeing services, this could be the accessibility services, academic services, or it could be things like talking about parking on campus or the cost of food on campus or non-academic events on campus. It could be something completely non-academic and not relevant to an SSLC. The Big Rep meeting is a space for you guys as academic reps to talk with the staff who can directly change and resolve feedback about those kinds of subjects. So rather than talking specifically about your course, you're talking about the wider university experience and how your little group of students experiences the wider campus. On top of that, at the SU, we also do the Big Rep Network. That's a networking opportunity for you guys as reps. It'll be an opportunity to skill share, talk about what works for you in the role, flag with us at the Students' Union what you're struggling with, what you could do with more support or advice on. And yeah, get to know other students, do a bit more employability focused stuff to do with the role so that you guys get something out of this that benefits you. And you can sort of say on your CV, I was a rep and this is why it makes me more employable. And then finally, you can also get involved with Student Forum. This is an open meeting for all students, but as students who are able to speak on behalf of an entire course year group, having some of you guys, that would be great. And then there's other things that you may do as part of your responsibilities of a course rep that again are quite subjective and technically optional, but might be good in terms of your course staff might arrange like monthly catch-ups with all of the reps in your course to get to know what's going on, what students are talking about, and try and resolve issues before student staff liaison committees and keep updated on what students are talking about. So who you'll be working with on your course in your academic departments, the staff you'll be working with are your Director of Education and Student Experience, aka your Ds, and/or your program lead, whichever staff member runs your course. These are the key staff members who will receive and action your feedback. These guys are writing your course descriptors and your module descriptors, so can literally go in and edit that information and change what the course is about. Your subject chair. This is the chair of your student staff liaison committee meetings. They aren't staff members, they are voluntary reps like you guys who get voted in, and they they collect your feedback for the agenda. So it's really important that you keep in contact with them and make sure that you've raised your feedback with them first so that they can make sure it's in the agenda. The Student Voice and Change team, they're the administrative team for student staff liaison committees in Exeter. So they schedule the meetings and minute the meetings. So if you ever need to know when your next SSLC is happening or where it might be happening, if it's on campus or online, they are the best people to speak to. And then the other reps in your course year group. It's really important that you guys work as a team across your course year group to submit feedback. If there's more than one course rep in your year group, there is the occasion where you are the only course rep in your year group. But if there are others, please do reach out to them and get to know them and work with them. I have witnessed in my time situations where two course reps in the same year group have submitted completely conflicting information. One of them might have said that students are really enjoying a module, whereas another one might have said that actually students are really hating a module. And it's just good to know for consistency what the majority opinion is from students. And you can work with the course reps in your year group to make sure you're reaching every corner of the course. So at the Students' Union, you also get support from us, and you'll be working with the academic representation and advocacy coordinator, which is me. I support obviously with training and can answer any questions you have about the rep role throughout the year. So if you ever have a moment where you're like, actually, I can't remember what they said about this in training, or a unique situation comes up that you'd like support with dealing with, please just get in touch with us and we can help you work through it. And then you also get support from your president Exeter, which this year is Connie, who is in that photo, the person second from the right. And the way Connie can support you is a bit different to the way I support you, because she has a mandate to represent the opinion of all University of Exeter students in Cornwall. And what that means is if you get feedback where you feel like, actually, this is a bigger issue than just my course, it's probably affecting the whole department, or even like multiple departments at Exeter, or even the whole university, you can talk to Connie about this issue, and Connie can help you lobby for it in higher up university meetings and make sure that something's done about it. And equally, if you get feedback of that nature that you've already addressed to staff and you don't think they're listening, Connie can help step in and make sure your student voice is being heard. And yeah, Connie sits in meetings with higher up university staff. She's got direct links to the Vice Chancellor of the university, so it shows how much influence and much support she can give you guys. So in terms of signposting, obviously your purpose as a course rep is to represent the majority opinion of your course, or the opinion of a significant chunk of students on your course. And also your focus is on academic issues and less so non-academic issues that may affect students. However, because of the nature as a supportive role, you're likely to get students coming to you with personal issues that might be really impacting their well-being. So if you do have a student come to you with an issue and you can clearly see that they're struggling, please do refer them to the wellbeing services. The wellbeing team are there to support them. There are links on the Students' Union website where you can find out more about how you can get support with your welfare. And I'll also send a poster in this chat at the end of the session for those on the call to access about the wellbeing services. And then if a student comes to you with an issue that they'd like advice on, the Students' Union has an advice service that can help. So our Student Union advisors, Joe and Katie, offer practical support on a range of issues, and it's free, confidential, and impartial. By impartial, what we mean is that the Students' Union is a separate organisation to the universities, which means that we're not biased towards universities. So in the case of being a course rep, for example, if you feel like a staff member is unfairly targeting you because you're a rep, they're marking you badly, and they're singling you out for whatever reason, you can come to us and we won't get annoyed at you for like mentioning it. We won't snitch on you to the universities. We'll like sit down, hear your issue and work out how we can help you resolve it. Same with the SU advice service. If a student has an issue that they'd like to raise with the university, they want to make a formal complaint, they would like to appeal a grade, or they are being accused of academic misconduct. Maybe they're being accused of plagiarism and they need support going through the process. Joe and Katie are here to help you guys go through those situations if you're ever in them. So if a student comes to you with an issue like that, even if it feels like it's academic related, if it's a personal issue, you guys aren't trained to support students through that kind of stuff, but the SU advice team are, so please just signpost students to them, help them book an appointment with them, and they can get the help that they need. So, how SSLCs work. Student staff liaison committees are a collaborative forum where student representatives and academic staff meet regularly to discuss and address issues related to academic programs. In short, you're working directly with your Director of Education and Student Experience to resolve problems on your course. What is the purpose of SSLCs? So one of the most obvious points and reasons for SSLCs is to enhance communication. They give you guys a platform to represent the student voice on your course, and they are technically the only formal channel where you guys can give feedback about your course that can be acted on in the moment. Obviously, there's other channels where you can give feedback on your course. For example, you might be invited to do module evaluations, but when you're doing a module evaluation, that the effects that happen there will happen for students in the next few years. You won't see the changes come into effect. Whereas the benefit of SSLCs is that you'll see the benefit of these meetings. You'll hopefully see some of the changes come into action. So on top of that, SSLCs are there to help improve academic quality. SSLCs play into a department in the universities called QAE, which stands for Quality, Assurance and Enhancement. And that department is basically there to ensure that you guys, as paying consumers who are paying for your education, get the high quality education that you're paying for. SSLC minutes are public, so all students should be able to access the minutes of SSLCs to see what their reps are doing and how they're supporting them, and what feedback's being raised. And also, any staff members who are in the SSLC are able, because the minutes are public, to take the minutes to other meetings that they're in, where there might not be student representation through the presence of a student representative. So they may be in a meeting that's all university staff, an issue may come up, and your lecturers will be able to say, oh, well, actually, we talked about this with students in an SSLC. We know how students feel about this issue. Here's the minutes of the SSLC for you to see what students' opinions are. So yeah, it's a really important structural purpose to ensure that you guys have a say in how your courses are shaped and how effective the learning you get from them is. You have a say in the quality of the education provided to you, basically. Addressing concerns, obviously SSLCs allow you to discuss issues with staff, and hopefully staff will respond promptly and resolve the issues. Encouraging collaboration. Don't be afraid in SSLCs to come with ideas of how you might like to see any issues raised resolved. This might be that when you're collecting feedback, students are saying, this is an issue that we're having, and this is how we think staff could really easily resolve it. So you present the students' opinions of how to resolve an issue, or it could be your own personal insight as a student, how an issue could be resolved. Equally, if you don't have a solution for an issue you're raising, that's okay too. But just be aware that it is a space to be collaborative. You're not just there to complain to staff about problems and then be like, what are you going to do about it? You can get involved and help support any resolutions. And finally, enhancing the student experience. Ultimately, the point of SSLCs is to enhance your experience and ensure that the degrees that you guys are on meet the needs of the students studying it. So, what to do before, during, and after SSLCs? Before the meeting, please RSVP to the SSLC invite. You'll get an invite, a calendar invite via your university email from the Student Voice and Change team. If you can't make the meeting, make sure you still submit feedback to be discussed. Send it to your subject chair, and they will ensure that the feedback is still addressed and staff are still made aware of it. If you don't have a subject chair, again, any sort of departments or areas of the university that don't have student staff liaison committees, so the Foreign Language Centre, I don't believe has subject chairs, and postgraduate research students don't have subject chairs as far as I'm aware. It's likely that if you can't attend a meeting, it will probably be rescheduled because they're quite small, and equally you can still send over feedback to the relevant staff member. So before a meeting, you also need to collect feedback alongside the other reps in your course year group and then submit that feedback ahead of time to your subject chair. Subject chairs are encouraged or given a guideline to submit their agendas a week in advance of student staff liaison committees, so staff can look over the agendas. So make sure you get all of your urgent feedback into them before then. During the meeting, make sure you turn up on time. Make sure you take notes on how staff will respond to the feedback you and your fellow course reps bring. You may also have or be given actions that you need to complete as a rep. So staff may ask you to share the word that some guest lectures are going to be happening over the next few months, or they may ask you to go back to your course cohorts and ask for a little bit more feedback on an issue so they can get a better picture of how it's impacting students. So make sure you make notes of A, how staff are responding to your feedback, what they're going to do about it, and B, anything that you've been asked to do as a course rep. And finally, during the meeting, don't talk over others, allow everyone a chance to talk. SSLCs can be quite busy meetings with a lot of different courses and year groups in attendance, so just make sure that you respect everyone in the room. And finally, after the meeting, feedback to your course cohorts on the actions staff are taking to resolve any problems or implement new ideas. Let students know what's actually happening in these meetings, especially if they're not reps and they're not very clued in on what reps do. So what feedback should I bring to SSLCs? I believe I've already said this, but SSLCs are a space for you guys to talk about your academic experience, any feedback people have on their course, and surrounding supporting academic services. So, for example, you may get feedback on teaching, course and module content, timetabling issues, learning resources, the library, stores, IT resources. For more scientific courses, this may also be feedback on your facilities, the labs that you're using, stuff like that. Assessment and feedback. So how effective are the assessments that staff are giving students? Do they feel like the feedback they're getting is being sent out promptly? Do they understand the feedback? Do they understand how to improve on their work from the feedback? Things like that. Personal tutoring is fairly self-explanatory. This list is not exhaustive, so there may be things that you get feedback on that don't necessarily fit into this list, but you do feel that they're related to your academic experience. So use this as a guide, not as a rule. Barriers to access or learning and other diversity and inclusion related issues affecting particular groups within the cohort. What this essentially means is it's your purpose as a course rep to make sure you're representing the majority opinion of students and prioritizing the issues that are affecting the most significant number of students. However, if a student or a group of students come to you with an issue that's affecting them because of the fact that they are part of an underrepresented group, those issues should still be heard within SSLCs. For example, if a couple of disabled students come to you and let you know that an area of their course isn't accessible to them, even though those students may only make up 5% of the cohort, if that, because this is an issue that's impacting their learning and it's impacting them because they're part of this underrepresented group, it can still be taken to an SSLC. Examples of other groups we'd consider underrepresented on your course are, so disabled students, as I've already mentioned, international students, mature students, students with carer responsibilities. There are other groups that you may also consider, to just be aware that their voice needs to be heard as well. Academic projects and events students would like to facilitate. So when you collect feedback as a course rep, we suggest that you can fit it around a structure that follows along the lines of asking what's going well on the course, what could be better on the course, which is specifically phrased that way to be more positive and constructive rather than negative and accusatory. And finally, you can ask, do students have any new ideas that they'd like to see on the course? And then SSLCs are a space to discuss these new ideas. So this might be anything from getting in more guest lectures to doing more workshops to having more field trips, stuff like that. Sometimes students may also ask for more socials to get to know other students on the course or other students in the department or other departments. You can still discuss these in SSLCs and see if staff can help support facilitate them. But you could also submit some of these ideas if you would like to as students to the Student Union's Student Project Fund. The Student Project Fund is a funding application, funding pot that you guys can pitch ideas to, and if your idea is successful, which they normally pass fairly easily, you guys can get funding for any resources you might need for your event. You can get help with risk assessments and any paperwork you need to do. We can help you book a space on campus if you need a space on campus, or find an external venue if you need an external venue. And the point of the Student Project Fund is to put on any events and projects that will foster student community. And in your case, it may be that you want to foster academic community within your department and help students get to know each other. So yeah, do check out Student Project Fund if that sounds interesting to you. It will be open periodically throughout the year. So it's open from now until 7th of November, and then it will reopen sometime around Christmas or New Year. The best way to find out is to keep checking our website or follow us on socials like Instagram to keep updated. And finally, feedback you can bring to student staff liaison committees. You can bring feedback on how well staff responded to any feedback brought at the last SSLC. You'll have 3 in a year, so in the second or third one, you may want to talk about anything you've previously brought up, the actions decided on that feedback. Had that action happened? If it has happened, are students happy with the result of it? If it hasn't happened, why hasn't it happened? Do we need to change the way we respond to that feedback? So you can also look at that in your SSLCs. So some examples of stuff that students have brought in the past, in the last academic year to SSLCs, various different courses in various different departments talked about the technical time given after exams. Online exams, the technical time reduced from 30 to 15 minutes on ELI, and that made them less accessible for many students, particularly neurodivergent students. So it was an EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion issue. An SSLC discussed student attendance in lectures, how to improve the attendance of lectures without punishing those who may have valid reasons for not attending, such as carer responsibilities or other jobs. And yeah, staff worked with students to come up with some ideas for that. And finally, a lot of different courses and a lot of different SSLCs raised issues with ELI and course content, such as assessment feedback being uploaded late. And the way students phrased the conversation was really productive. They sort of talked about how they know that complications can happen and don't expect staff to solve the problem overnight, but clear communication with students about what the issue is would be helpful so that students don't panic, essentially. So this flowchart is for you to help you identify whether the feedback you have is relevant to an SSLC or not. You may get feedback that's about non-academic issues, parking, cost of food on campus, halls of residence, stuff like that. And you may also get feedback that is academic, but probably needs to be solved outside of an SSLC for various reasons. For example, you may have feedback. So this flowchart should be used once you've identified that the feedback you've collected is the majority opinion of students, it's impacting a significant chunk of your course. And you may get feedback that is specific to your course, but it's time sensitive. For instance, students may not know how to submit work for assessment, and this assessment is in 2 weeks, but your next SSLC isn't for 4 weeks. So there's no point waiting for the SSLC, it's not going to get resolved. The best thing to do in that kind of situation is contact the relevant course staff as soon as possible and see if they can resolve it as quickly as possible. If you get feedback that's course specific, but not time sensitive, it can wait for a response. However, you feel like there is a simple solution. You don't need to wait 4 weeks for an SSLC to happen, for it to be resolved. Again, you can contact the relevant course staff. You can just email them to say, hey, just a heads up, this feedback has been raised by students. I was just wondering if there's a simple solution to this, or if you'd like us to wait to discuss it in the SSLC. And if they say, the worst thing that can happen is they say, actually, yeah, this is more complicated than you think, please take it to the SSLC. You may get feedback about your whole subject area and department, which you can raise with your subject chair. For undergraduates, you're already sending feedback to your subject chair, so it will just be a case of going, also, this feedback came up, should we check if it's affecting multiple courses rather than just our course? And they can sort of see if it needs to be solved quickly or can wait for the SSLC. And then you may have feedback about the wider university. It might still be academic feedback, but it's out of your course staff's control. For instance, how well ELE works. Your course staff don't design ELE or work on ELE. the IT team does, I believe, or some kind of technical team. So they won't be able to action your feedback. Or it could be about the wider university, but not academic at all. Like I said, parking, halls of residence, stuff like that. If it's feedback where you have a solution in mind, like you know as a group of students what the solution should be, you could put the idea on Make a Change. Make a Change is a petitions platform on the Students' Union website. And essentially you can put ideas on there of what you want to see in and around campus or around your university. And if the ideas get enough upvotes, the ideas will be taken to student forum. So students can log into our website, vote, upvote ideas that they like, and downvote ideas that they might really dislike. If your idea gets taken to student forum, students discuss it further, talk about how they want to see it resolved and what steps will be taken for it to be resolved and who will take responsibility for that. At student forums are a whole town hall meeting that any student can attend. It's open to both Falmouth University students and University of Exeter Cornwall students because you both share the same campus. It's hybrid, so it will be online as well as on campus. So if you can't make it to campus that day, but you still have time to join, you could join on Teams. And your sabbatical officers will be present, and it's an opportunity for you to talk to them about what their manifesto priorities are and how well they're working towards them. They can take responsibility for any Make a Change ideas that you guys talk about. So that's how student forum works. As a little disclaimer, Make a Change is about shaping the direction of your students' union. So just because an idea is submitted doesn't mean, and students like the idea, doesn't mean the University of Exeter will immediately action it. For example, if for some reason a student submitted a Make a Change about introducing a uniform at the University of Exeter, and for some reason a bunch of students thought that was a genius idea and all upvoted it, and it got enough upvotes to be taken to forum, and for some reason at forum everyone was like, yeah, this is genius, we really want a uniform. The University of Exeter won't hear that and then immediately go, all right then, we'll give you a uniform. But the union will have a mandate to lobby for University of Exeter students to have a uniform. And Connie will sit in meetings with university staff and be able to say, by the way, your students want a uniform put in place. What are you going to do to respond to that? Like, how are you going to action that feedback? So that's how Make a Change works. If you have feedback that's about the wider university, so it impacts a lot more students than just you and your little course or your little department, but the issue feels really complicated, you actually don't know how to solve it, you don't know what will be a better solution, you can just simply contact your sabbatical officers and they can work out who the best member of staff in the wider university is to talk to, and either take the issue off your hands and represent it in meetings on your behalf, or work with you to represent it, depending on how much you want to be involved. You can contact them at presidents@thesu.org.uk. Connie, your president at Exeter, and Marquetta and Fina, your vice presidents, have access to that email. So they will be able to figure out who's most appropriate to help you. An example of this might be a lot of students have raised that food on campus is very expensive. It came up a lot last year, especially because of cost of living. And obviously there's not really a simple answer to that. We can't get rid of the concept of capitalism overnight. And it's a lot of work to convince the university to make things cheaper because there's a risk of it not then being profitable for them, that kind of stuff. So at the time, the vice president, Phil, came up with a sort of idea of, okay, if we can't make the shop more accessible to students and the cost of the cafes more accessible to students, how can we make food an option of accessing food for students that's an alternative to those sources? So from that, the Students' Union pantry was introduced. The pantry was put outside of the Students' Union on Pembroke campus, and any student who's in dire need of supplies can simply rock up and grab anything that they need. No questions asked. And then we also have introduced free soup Fridays. So every Friday afternoon from about 1 till 3, we give away free soup to anyone that wants it. It's not like means tested. You don't have to be in dire need of food to come and grab some. It's a community building opportunity for you guys to get to know the students, have a free meal. And yeah, that happens on the Pembroke campus, SU space, 1 to 3, every Friday as often as we can. And you can bring your own bowl or hope that we have some spare. And yeah, so that's different ways that you can direct your feedback. So to give me a bit of a break from waffling, I've got another word cloud for you. So other than online surveys, what tactics could you use to collect feedback from your course cohort? If you are able to, you can scan the QR code in the corner and submit some ideas. I'll give you guys some time to add some more ideas if you wish. A quick disclaimer with this. I'm not saying that online surveys are objectively bad. I think they're really, they can be really effective and convenient to reach people. The reason why we're doing this is to come up with some ideas for alternative methods you can use when online surveys don't work, because there's kind of a period in the year where students kind of drop off the face of the earth, and you may send out an online survey to students to collect feedback before the SSLC, but they don't really respond either because they're too busy, they just miss the email or whatever. So this is a way to think of some alternative ideas that you guys could use to contact students. So yeah, course group chats is a good shout, and email, they kind of go hand in hand. I wouldn't rely solely on group chats alone because some people might not, they might not have WhatsApp and they might not have Instagram and they might not have Discord and stuff like that. So your university emails, just sending out a blanket email to people that you're collecting feedback is a great way to ensure that you've definitely tried to reach every single student on your course. There's a year group email that you guys will all be members of, subjective to what your course is. So like first year geology students will all be in a email group that is called first year geology, and so on and so forth. So yeah, email is always a safe shout, but group chats are also great. You can like quickly send updates in those and reach out to people, and they might be more likely to check their phone and messages on their phone than emails in their inbox. Passing around sticky notes for anonymity, doing anything in person, if you can, is a good shout. If you can steal some time at the start of a seminar or a lecture, that's always a good opportunity to collect feedback. And yeah, speaking in person, just having conversations with people can help get you started in terms of what feedback students may have about their course. So, methods of collecting feedback. We've mentioned some of them earlier, but to go into more detail, so you could run focus groups. They're small but detailed discussions. You can get quantitative information from students, like detailed quotes and stuff like that about issues, and really find out how the issue is impacting students. But obviously, if you have quite a big course, it's only going to you're only going to be able to access the opinion of a small group of those students. So hands up if there's a better way of phrasing this, but basically it's a really easy way to collect feedback before or after a lecture. Don't feel afraid to ask for the lecturer for 5 minutes at the start of a lecture to just collect feedback, and then you could use this to quickly get information. So I did it at the start of the training session. I said, hands up if you have never been a course rep before, and that gave me a sense of how many people in the session are completely new to the idea of a course rep. Equally, you guys could be saying stuff like, hands up if you are aware of the resources that staff are uploading to Ellie, and then see how many people respond. And then you could say, follow up with something like, keep your hand up if you've actually accessed those resources on Ellie. And this just gives you quantitative, numbers-based information that you can share in SSLCs. Suggestion boxes. If you have course-specific spaces, you can put out physical suggestion boxes. There are also online alternatives. And these are opportunities for you to get anonymous submissions of ideas for your course. Great, because they're anonymous, so people feel more might feel more comfortable sharing. But obviously, because they're anonymous, you can't necessarily follow up with specific people about what they submit in the suggestion box. And also, if you don't have a course-specific space, it might be hard to do one physically and guarantee that everyone's actually submitting stuff from your year. So yes, polls, slightly different to online surveys, just because rather than it being a whole survey that they have to fill in, it's just one question that they can really quickly answer. You can do it in some online group chats, have this function. I know that Discord does. WhatsApp might, I'm not sure. But yeah, so polls can be really a simple way of doing this. You can also put polls in your Outlook emails if you wish to. And then drop-in sessions, you can make a habit of setting specific times in a week where students can find you to give feedback. It might be that you have a regular weekly lecture and you could say, okay, for 30 minutes after this lecture, I'm going to hang around campus in this spot, and you guys will be able to come and chat to me and give me feedback. And then students can easily know how to easily reach you regularly in person. And then, as you mentioned, peer-to-peer conversations. At the very least, you can just chat to students on your course. You know, if you're sitting in a seminar and students start talking about how they're finding the library resources, for instance, that's a way for you to then start a conversation of, oh, okay, how are you finding the library resources? Do you feel like we need access to more resources and books? Do you want me to talk about this in the next SSLC? And then you can use anything that you collect through these methods to inform a further survey that can give you ideas on how many students share this opinion. So submitting feedback to an SSLC, you submit feedback directly to your subject chair. Your subject chair will be given a list of all the reps in the department, and they'll send you a welcome email, so like an introductory email, so you'll get to know who they are. And yeah, make sure you submit feedback to them in a timely manner, because they have to submit the agenda for SSLCs usually a week in advance. Obviously, not all SSLCs will have subject chairs, but most of them do. And for those of you that don't, you'll be contacted by staff to share feedback, or you'll share it casually in more casual meetings like coffee mornings. So once you've collected your feedback and you have a sense of what students are talking about, you can double check that it's representative of the majority of your course and appropriate for SSLC through the ABCDE's checklist. So this is broken down. So is the feedback accurate and appropriate for the SSLC? Is the feedback balanced? Is it constructive? Is it depersonalized? And is it evidenced? So to explain more about what that means, accurate and appropriate means, is there enough detail in the feedback to clearly explain what the issue or new idea is and what the impact is on students? And you can demonstrate this by just making sure that you're clearly and concisely explaining the feedback. You could just do this through point, evident, explain. It's just making sure that you really easily summarize what the issue is so that your staff can really quickly get to the heart of the issue. And also, is the feedback focused on topics relevant to an SSLC? Is it about your course? Is it about students' academic experience? And you can use the flowchart that I showed earlier to make sure you're raising feedback in the right place. Is the feedback balanced? So the feedback needs to be representative of as many students on your course as possible, but you also need to try to understand the experiences of students from different backgrounds and reach out to students on your course that you may not normally interact with often. They're not in your social circle, they may not be in your seminars, they may take different modules to you. You still need to make sure that those students are getting their voice heard. So ways you can demonstrate that. Briefly mention how you collected your feedback and /or how many students responded. This just gives staff an idea of the range of opinion, how many students are impacted, and so on and so forth. If you really struggle to get feedback from what would be considered the majority of the course, if there's, say, 90 students on your course, but you could only get feedback from 30 of them, just be honest with staff about that. They're fairly forgiving. They know how hard it is to get responses from students on feedback collecting. So just be open and say, we struggled to get feedback, but we did manage to talk to this many students and this is what they said. And then staff can always check or do some more work with you to investigate whether the issue affects even more students. So is the feedback constructive? This means that feedback should look at what's working well alongside what could be improved. So if it's an issue that's being raised, you can suggest solutions to your issue where appropriate. And also, if you don't have a solution, you can still be open to being part of it. Like you can still recognize that the SLC is a collaborative space. And then on top of this, you can still provide positive feedback. Yeah, about areas of the course that are working well. Positive feedback still has a functional purpose. It's not just about patting your lecturers on the back and saying, well done, you're doing great. If you tell lecturers things on the course that are going well, they will most likely keep doing those things. Yeah, so if there's like a series of workshops that they've introduced that you guys are really liking, tell them, because then they'll keep doing those workshops. If no one reinforces that it's a good idea, they may end up scrapping them. So it's always good to bring positive feedback as well as negative feedback. Is the feedback depersonalized? If there is nothing else that you take away from this training, this one thing is really important. Feedback should not name individual staff or students. If you're quoting a student and saying so-and-so said this, instead of doing that, just say a student said this. If you get feedback about staff member that's naming them, but it could be anonymized, so it might be that students are saying, oh, so-and-so's lectures are really confusing, but it's not actually about the lecturer's lectures, it's about the module content. So you could say lectures on this module are proving quite confusing for students. That anonymizes it, makes it not about the person. That's really great. You may have situations where you get feedback about an individual staff member that you can't separate from that individual because, for instance, it might be about their behavior, how they interact with students, how they run their lectures and stuff like that. They might be particularly rude to students. They might constantly be late or forgetting to upload stuff like that. SSLCs are public meetings, so please do not raise feedback that you can't separate from the individual, and please don't name individuals because it's not good practice to name and shame them like that in front of other students and other staff. If you get feedback that's about an individual lecturer, you can raise it with the next staff member above them. This will probably most likely be someone like your program lead, but it may also be someone who's running the module that the lecturer is teaching on that you could raise it with. You can also raise it with a lecturer that you feel comfortable talking to, and they can help you escalate it to the right person and then action it. Do not raise this feedback about this individual with the individual themselves. It's not your jobs as course reps to have those difficult conversations. It's not fair on you as students to have those difficult conversations. Just raise it with a relevant staff member and they will help you. They will ensure that it's forwarded on because, for instance, your program leads and your DEIS, for instance, will essentially manage all of the lecturers on your course. So in terms of employment, they are literally responsible for making sure that their employees are doing their jobs properly. So it's more appropriate for them to deal with it than you. Hopefully that makes sense. The final point of the ABCDEs of feedback is the feedback evidenced? So this basically just means that you need to prove you received this feedback from your course cohort and you're not representing just your personal opinion or the opinion of your mates. You can do this by including statistics and quotes from students where appropriate. And yeah, that just helps demonstrate the issue from that's being from students' perspectives rather than being your own personal opinion. So, ways to present feedback diplomatically. You can do different ways in the way you write up your feedback to make it more appealing to staff, a little bit less offensive to staff, I suppose. One way you can do this is by submitting your feedback in a timely manner. As long as you make sure that your feedback is in the agenda, it gives time for lecturers to know what's coming and what students might be talking about. So that makes them or reduces the risk of them being defensive or caught off guard in SSLCs. So it avoids any unwanted surprises for both parties. When you're writing up feedback, make sure you're being specific. What needs to be improved and why does it need to be improved? This avoids any confusion. If you add as much detail as possible in a concise way, it allows staff to properly understand what the problem is. You can use inclusive language. We and our shows that the feedback is from your collective course rather than your personal opinion. Obviously, you may be raising feedback that is representative of the majority's opinion, but you personally don't agree with it. In that situation, I don't expect you to pretend that you are agreeing with it. You can just say a lot of students feel that this is happening. As long as you're not literally going, oh, well, I think this, and only talking about your personal perspective, it should be fine. Stay neutral, so present the issue without assigning blame, keep the focus on the problem. We talked previously about how if you get feedback that's like so-and-so's lectures are really confusing, actually, can you look at that and make it about the module content and the course content rather than the person? Could it just be actually the lecturers on this module are confusing? Use a positive tone. Words like improve, enhance, and develop are better than fix and correct. They're more positive, they're more constructive. Frame feedback as suggestions. Don't go into SSLCs demanding anything, saying you must do this, you have to do this. Open it up to conversation and collaboration. Could we consider doing this? Would it be better if we tried this? It keeps the tone constructive. And finally, show appreciation, acknowledge the efforts and challenges faced by staff. This could be by giving positive feedback, or it could just be by recognizing the work that they're doing to recognize the student voice, or if an issue is particularly complicated, saying we recognize that this might not be easy to solve, but we appreciate all of the work that you're putting towards resolving students' issues, stuff like that. And finally, closing the feedback loop. So once you have been to an SSLC, talked through your feedback with staff, the last step is to make sure you close the feedback loop and let students on your course know what's happening with the feedback they raised, when it might be happening, and how they can give you more feedback. So an important way to start with this, it's really important that you take notes in the SSLC so you know what's happened, so you can help respond. You can essentially close the feedback loop through any ways that you might have tried collecting feedback. So if you can give updates in classes and course meetings. You could take 5 minutes at the start of a lecture to be like, hey, I'm your rep, just to let you know, this is what we talked about in SSLCs, this is what staff are going to do about it. You could send around an email or a newsletter if your department sends out newsletters and have a little update in there. You could give quick updates in group chats, send like a really quick message of being like, you guys said this in the last lesson and staff said that they're going to do this about it. And every time you close the feedback loop, give students the option to ask questions or give you follow-up feedback. It doesn't have to be that you do it there and then. So if you're updating in the 5 minutes before a lecture, you won't necessarily want to go any questions in case you need to get started with the actual learning. But you could say, if you have any questions, here's my email, here's how to contact me if you want to know more. So if you need any help, you can reach out to us at Students' Union. You can contact the academic representation team at studentvoice@thesu.org.uk. That's the shared email we have to reach out to us. And you can also come and chat to staff on the Penryn SU space. We're opposite the Sannery. We're open 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. If you'd like to talk to someone in person, please feel free to come in and chat. We also have a rep development plan, and this is to help develop your skills during your time in the rep role. and we've worked with the University of Exeter to create it. So basically, the point of this plan is that you guys can reflect on the skills that you already bring to the table, and also highlight any skills that you want to develop. So it may be that you're already really great at writing up feedback and being organized in that sense and collecting feedback from people, but you're not so confident on your public speaking skills and your negotiating skills that you might have to use in SSLCs. So this is an opportunity for you to highlight the skills that you want to develop, how you want to develop them, like how you're going to work on them. And we're hoping for opportunities throughout the year to work with the employability team, the career zone, for you guys to look at how you can convert these skills into transferable skills for your CV and demonstrate I was a course rep at university, and this is why that makes me more employable than any other candidates. So yes, you can find the rep development plan on the Rep Hub, and I will also send a copy of it into the chat for you guys in the meeting.